Thank you so much for joining me on my live stream today. It was a lot of fun and I really appreciate it. We have a good community building here and let's keep it going. Smash that like button if you are enjoying these daily risk ranges, which is what we're going to talk about today. The main thing we need to get to though is NVIDIA. They reported some great earnings. They beat on pretty much everything and now we're seeing that positivity come back into the market, which if you were watching live with us, we did mention some signals down here by our daily expected moves that were telling us that the momentum's dying out. With some good news, we can see a solid pop. Now, I will say it like this. NVIDIA just saved the market for now. So let's get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, and AMD. That way we can get a good head start into tomorrow and get you those daily expected moves. First off, let's tackle the SPY and see how we reacted with those daily expected moves. Now, if you were on the live channel here, we were really saying, hey, this could be forming some kind of head and shoulders, but if it wants to go the opposite way, look out for that 15-minute divergence. Well, we got that 15-minute divergence down near the daily expected move, but we didn't necessarily get all the way there. The Qs pretty much got there, but we did come down and fill this gap. And then we saw that positivity come in at the end of the day. And then NVIDIA earnings actually came out. They blow it out of the water. So what this means is now we have the opportunity to get on in a positive trend for the 15-minute, and we could see more positivity, especially if this 30-minute is able to roll up as well and get into positive territory. So it looks like that time right now for us to be a little bit cautious. Now we're going to see some upside here, most likely. We'll have to see if that is able to fade early on in the day, and we're going to talk about that when we cover the tomorrow's risk ranges. Okay, so we're going to go over to the Qs real quick, and then we'll hop back to the SPY to show you those new risk ranges for tomorrow. The Qs overall, we were talking about, hey, this looks like a 1, 2, 3, and ABC move down to test the bottom of this daily expected move and the weekly. Okay, so we came right in there. We were just shy of it by about 40 cents, and we see how that really played out. Now, we were mentioning a lot throughout the live show. There is a 30-minute divergence here. If we want to head higher, now you have a 30-minute divergence in the recent price action. You actually can see that positivity come in with some good news. We got that good news with NVIDIA earnings, and so we're going to see this pop higher. So what I would normally do here is just create a little trend, which we'll probably talk about this once I get the new daily expected moves up. But this trend here could be important if we start to break through there. That's where we could really see more upside. Now, the important part here is just paying attention to these daily expected moves. Make sure to hit that like button if you like them. But we did state here how we look like we might have got a little overexcited. We broke through this level, and then we see that sell off. So what can we pay attention to? Well, a divergence on the 15-minute, kind of near or even outside sometimes of this daily expected move. This is a pretty wider range than the SPY, and I think we have an even wider range for tomorrow. So let's go check that out. All right, and for the SPY, we do have those updated ranges for you, and the SPY actually has a little bit wider range, and we're seeing that positivity come in the post market. So really, this wider range makes a lot of sense. We knew that going into Thursday, we would have a wider range with the volatility that could come with NVIDIA earnings in the FOMC minutes. Overall, on the live stream, yes, we showed you about this divergence. Now that opens the door for us to test maybe the top side here of that daily expected move. Now, one thing you'll notice if we do get as high as that daily expected move, we could see that resistance come in and we would be outside of the monthly. So we really need to pay attention to that. But now that we're able to get into positive territory, we're really going to see maybe some positivity come in. We just have to see, can we fight through this gap? Can we fight through this monthly expected move? And can we fight through this daily expected move, which sits right along these highs here? So if I was being a little bit diligent here, I would just draw myself a little trend and say, hey, once we come up to this point here, start to be a little cautious on the daily side of things. If we start to break through, this could be a good sign for the market. We could see that extended bullishness and we could break through, get a retest. And if it happens early on in the day, this is where some wild things could happen and we actually could head up towards that weekly expected move. There's a lot to take in, but we did get that NVIDIA earnings, and it looks like the direction for the time being, which we are going to be live tomorrow morning to watch the reaction that's happening in the overall market from the NVIDIA earnings. And we'll be paying attention to a lot of things tomorrow with these daily expected moves. The Q set up a good little trade down here from the technical side. Now we want to be careful around those earnings. Sometimes the technicals get it right on earnings. Sometimes they get it wrong. This time they happen to be right. So what we need to pay attention to is probably this trend between the most recent two highs, and then after that, really pay attention to that daily expected move. We can see some extreme strength. What I would really expect is this gap up here. Maybe we actually do a full closing of this gap first, get some kind of handle, which is very good news before a trend line. So it's very good news to get some kind of consolidation to then break through an important trend here between these highs. So we need to pay attention to it. How this really would have gone up if we didn't have NVIDIA earnings might have been something like this, right? We get this left side, we get the head, and then we get a right shoulder, but we're just skipping that. We're skipping through a bunch of resistance here and starting to head higher. Really look for if we're actually consolidating in the morning and then wanting to make another move higher. Maybe on the 15-minute, that means popping higher in the morning, kind of going sideways a little bit or even down, and then getting a second push, that crossing up in positive territory. So looks like we are about to make some new highs. And then if that resistance actually comes in, if we go there or we get really excited and get out to that daily expected move early on in the day, pay attention to that fading, because maybe people will start to wake up to the FOMC, because we do have 5 speakers tomorrow. The other thing on the cues you really want to pay attention to is this 30-minute divergence getting into positive territory. If this 30-minute divergence gets into positive territory, that's a good sign that we're going to break through this and maybe head a little bit higher. And if that does get into positive territory, it's a very good chance that this 2-hour is actually going to roll up. So this 2-hour could roll up, and what that would allow it to do is actually come up into this area, and maybe we create a divergence before GDP next week. So still, we have to be cautious around every divergence. As we get higher and higher, the rug pull can get worse. So it means we need to pay attention to these divergences every time they happen. You notice right when we get a little bit of bad news, boom, we kind of come down, and that could have easily continued. It didn't, because we got a lot of Fed speakers saying inflation is good for the market, but then we see their statement today and we say, oh, they said inflation is good for the market, but now they're stating how they might not be in the most control in order to cut rates right now. So this could mean that we're actually going to see some kind of lower high come in, and we just want to pay attention to it as it goes up. Pay attention to that 15-minute chart. Apple, with that NVIDIA earnings, is not seeing too much positivity. It's only up 0.04%. Okay, so the thing we need to point out with Apple is it still has this divergence between this low, and it has a very recent divergence here. Not necessarily on the MACD, but it is down here on the RSI. We have the bigger divergence, this one, at the same time on MACD, on RSI. So if this thing wants to roll up, we can see some positivity come in, and that may roll over this daily chart. So we have to pay attention to the daily now. If this is able to break through this high, cross up into positive territory, we could be making another point of reference in this wedging structure that is formed, and then maybe down the line we actually get something that really breaks us down with some kind of divergence or some kind of rotation down into negative territory on the daily scale. But as of right now, this does look pretty bullish. If this wants to kind of be a move that fades, I would really look for a reaction in this zone in here. It's been very important. So if we actually pop higher, look for that to fade, because that could mean that we're popping like this and then dropping back down into negative territory, which if we drop down into negative territory, you guys already know it, we're going to most likely test this low or go make a new one. So it's a time to pay attention. Be ready to move and trade like water, like we were saying on the live video. Make sure to be willing to flip very quickly, because volatility could come back into this market at any point, and GDP next week might be the point, or a post-Fed sell-off. Amazon, we were talking about the 30-minute here, and it really held up where it had to. It literally had to hold up with this wick in order to stay afloat, or else we could have seen some kind of big drop. Now we have created some kind of head and shoulders, and maybe we are going to push higher. Amazon seeing a little bit of positivity. We overall are saying with the NVIDIA earnings being good, we could see this gap getting filled. And then I went ahead and connected a point between these two highs, because if we see that dramatic push higher, we could be setting up some kind of 2-hour divergence. So Amazon actually does have a pretty good structure here. So if it wanted to break higher, maybe that would actually get us another point of reference somewhere up in here, paying attention to our weekly expected moves on Patreon. And that would allow this MACD to roll up in positive territory, which just means to me, hey, we might test this high, we might make a new one. As long as this move doesn't fade around that gap fill, I could really see that happening and get some kind of triple divergence right before we go into GDP next week. Tesla has been very good to us. That 2 hour was looking pretty good. It's not seeing the most positivity at this point, but we are right on the center line. Okay, so if we are able to get into positive territory, this could be some kind of consolidation here. I just really want to pay attention to that, but it looks like we are going to see some positivity, and Tesla just had that 2 hour divergence that crossed the daily. So we could see another move higher, maybe doing something like this, right? A little 1, 2, 3 pattern coming up to that 207.42 we're really paying attention to. Now we could see prolonged bullishness, especially if Apple starts to get bullish. So if this wants to go higher, maybe we get a full-fledged retest of that big triangle that we broke out of. I'm going to switch to the daily. You can see we were in this big triangle for quite some time, ever since the all-time high, and that could be tested very soon if we see some big positivity. So maybe next week, early next week, if we do get a good push of positivity here, we could start to get up and do some kind of retest. That would be the bullish I would get on this, and then see that roll over. What this would do on the MACD is get you that roll up, but then as it gets towards positive territory, see that roll over into negative. That's really what I would see happening from here if we got super bullish. And that would mean, hey, we're going to come down and possibly test this low or make a new one. If there is more positivity in this move, well, then we're going to roll up into positive territory, roll back down, and we'll get to roll up one more time, which is our hint, hey, this thing's got a little bit more juice left in it. All right, NVIDIA. So I think a lot of people are looking for points to pay attention to the upside. So before we get into the actual charting, I just wanted to show you guys the maximum pain. Okay, so maximum pain is just the options where they're really piled up, and this can cause put walls and call walls. So 700 is going to be your very important first price, and we're already above that right now. So if we use it as some support, now we can actually see a lot of these people go underwater over here and start to kind of squeeze, right? We can squeeze, and then the next point you would need to get past is that 750. Then you could get even more squeezing, and I think 800 is really where we could see that resistance come in. This is a very strong call wall at this point. So when we look at the chart, those areas would be 700 is right here. It's right above us. We already passed that. Maybe we actually do use that as support to head higher. And then 750 would be just above the high here. I think it kind of matches almost with this part right here. So 750 would be the next one. And if we get extreme bullishness for a few days, we actually can head up to that 800. If we do it really quickly over the next day or two, really pay attention, because that weekly expected move we give out on Patreon, if you want that, it's somewhere up by 800. So pay attention to NVIDIA as we are seeing a surge higher, but there's some levels you can pay attention to. Now, the big thing with the chart on the daily side was we got that crossing of the MACD, and we don't take calls after, or at least I don't take calls when I get that crossing to the downside of the MACD. Now, it doesn't work out every time, but it saves me more than it lets me get hurt, right? So we actually see that drop down. We saw it breaking through the 20, and overall in my live video this morning, I said, wait to see if it's able to close below, because if it closes below, the algorithms can get in, and we can head down to the bottom Bollinger, down into this little pocket here very quickly. So that didn't end up happening. We didn't close below. We were able to buy back up, which is a very, very good sign. It is a very good sign. So I just wanted to pull up a 2 hour because we're pretty close to that positive territory. We're going to most likely get into it tomorrow. So if we get into positive territory, that means more positivity can come as long as we're able to break through those key levels, 700, 750, and then really pay attention to 800 if we get there this week, because there's maybe going to be some big resistance there, as that call wall is all the way at 800. If we get to an 820 or something like that, we could see selling kind of pile on if it gets near Friday close. Last thing on the daily side of NVIDIA here, really looking if there is some kind of small divergence formed from this push. If we actually push up higher, does that give us some kind of divergence up in this overbought territory? Does that give us a small divergence on the MACD here and roll over? That would be something very interesting. We noticed this during the live video that people were really piling on puts. And, you know, the market likes to hurt the most amount of people it can. So when we saw a bunch of puts, really we could kind of say from a contrarian perspective, this thing should go up. But, you know, we still trade based on the price action, and we do not trade around earnings. At least I do not, because I'm, you know, it's a 50-50 flip at that point. So I'm paying attention to the levels that I mentioned, 700, 750, 800, and I'm going to see how the price reacts off of that. AMD is now going to see that positivity. It's seeing it right away, so we're actually popping higher. If we're able to cross on this daily MACD for a few days, we can see that positivity come in. You notice the price action got pretty tight. We tested that bottom Bollinger. Now we may just go test the top. So really pay attention if we're able to cross through this high. Pay attention to those weekly expected moves, because I expect AMD could get pretty bullish, especially if we break through this level, cross this high. We actually could get some pretty good bullishness in. So I'm going to be paying attention to the weekly expected moves on AMD. Now on the 30-minute, we were overall just saying, hey, it's a little worrisome because we're at the most important part, right? We're at the low here of our consolidation, and we're actually moving sideways. So we're moving sideways, creating almost a little head and shoulders in there. And so when you see the MACD acting like this, where it's kind of just moving sideways to up, that kind of is inviting some negativity. So you get this consolidation. Overall, this was most likely people just waiting for that NVIDIA data. So we saw that sell off, and then we just kind of sat there all day. And now we're seeing that pop higher. See if that's able to get into positive territory. Flipping over to a 2-hour. If this is able to get into positive territory, we may see this extend for quite some time. So we still could see this extend, and we'll point out where we see those divergences and what news could really tip us over for the next possible downturn. But as of right now, you're just looking if this move is actually going to fade or keep going. And all likelihood says right now that it's going to keep going. But we want to tune into the live video tomorrow just in case. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We still have this signal here on the weekly for the VIX that has popped up. And when it's able to get into actual positive territory, that's when the volatility will be extremely high. So even though we may see this fade this week, is it going to still react off of one of these moving averages and start to head higher? Because if we actually come down and then we see some kind of volatility, maybe with GDP, then we can see that volatility get into positive territory. And that's where the real pain begins. So the main takeaway here is yesterday we were seeing some bullish signals. Those ended up playing out. Even though we saw that downward move, we were ready for those divergences around those daily expected moves. And now we have to see if this move is going to hold strong or if we are going to make a lower high. It really looks like this move might extend for a few days if Apple can really get crossed on that daily MACD. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. You guys are always liking, subscribing. You're tuning into the live video. We hit 100 people in there. We almost hit 100 likes. Maybe next time we'll do that. But I do wish you all the luck in the world trading for the rest of the week, and I hope you have a good night. Peace.